In 2 recent videos, we looked at 20 of the best cheap insert sets from basketball cards made in 93-94 and 94-95. In this video and in the next video, we're going to do a similar thing, but this time looking at the years 95-96, 96-97, and 97-98. If you're interested in looking at inserts from this decade that are highly sought by collectors and that hold a lot of value, you'll want to check out an earlier video we made that I'll link above. If, however, you're looking for some lower end inserts that are super fun to chase complete sets of without having to spend much money at all, then this video and the next one are all for you. Sometimes the chase and the act of putting together a set can be very satisfying, and scratching that itch while paying the amount of money you'd pay for like one meal out just makes the whole thing a guilt-free fun time. Plus, if you were a collector back in the day, putting together sets of cards that were really out of your price range as a kid, but that are now easy to do so without much cost, can be a really fun way to get a hit of nostalgia and relive some of your childhood. Number 1, 95-96 Flir Hardwood Leaders. Now, I have a special place in my heart for the 95-96 Flir inserts. As a kid, I got myself a daily paper route and forced myself to wake up every single day of the week before 6 a.m. for that damn thing, just so I could make $100 a month to buy basketball cards with. And when I felt justified to roll out the quote-unquote big bucks, Flir was my go-to pack. In previous years, my allowance money just afforded me the occasional Flir or Stadium Club pack or something else relatively low end. But in 95-96, I was going for Flir packs, an occasional Topps Finest pack, or full-on boxes of the lower end stuff. I was swimming in cards. The Hardwood Leaders insert from that year were one of my favorite looking inserts from Flir, and the fact that they came one per pack was cool for me as a kid. It meant that every single Flir pack would have at least one card I really liked. The 27 cards featured in the set were double the thickness of a normal card, had that hardwood court floor background that I've always been a sucker for, and had one player from each team, who was that team's statistical leader the year before. Nowadays, since these cards were so common, they're really very inexpensive. Even the Michael Jordan card can be found for under $5, and the rest should be under $1 pretty easily. So even though it's a relatively large set with 27 cards, it's a really inexpensive one to put together. And the fact that one player who is kind of the face of the franchise is represented from each team means that it can be one of the best sets for remembering what was going on in the NBA at that time. Plus, they just look cool. Number 2, 95-96 Flir Playmaker. At first, I wasn't sure whether or not to include this set in this video or in a different video featuring more valuable cards, since these ones have price tags somewhere straddling the line between cheap and expensive, but I decided to put it here since there's not one specific card that's really too much. Most of these cards go for the $10 to $30 price nowadays, which is a decent amount more than most of the other inserts in this particular video, but as only a 10-card set, that means it isn't too hard to put the whole thing together for under $200. Again, more than others on this video, but not too bad. Considering the fact that these were inserted at a rate of 1 per 54 packs, then it makes these cards seem like a pretty good price currently. The 10 players in the set were a mix of stars and superstars of some of the most popular names in the card collecting hobby at the time, including my main PC guy back in the day, Nick Van Exel. They were designed with a special layer that gave them a 3-dimensional effect, which as a kid made me feel like these were some of the coolest cards out there. I bought Flir packs really hoping for one of these. Number 3, 95-96 Flir Center Spotlight. In our last insert-related video, I talked a bit about how interesting I find it that so many cool-looking insert sets in the 90s focused on the big guys, and these inserts here are a continuation of that 90s trend. The big dude who centered himself in the paint was an essential element of any good team with the style of play that was common in the NBA at the time, and so even the card collecting hobby had quite a large focus on centers and big power forwards. You don't see that too much nowadays. These 95-96 Center Spotlight cards were inserted at a rate of 1 per 18 packs and featured 5 of the best centers in the league at the time: David Robinson, Shaq, Olajuwon, Mourning, and Ewing, as well as Vlade Divac. This was the second year Flir had featured this insert series, but I decided to feature the 95-96 in this video instead of the last one in 94-95 since I just simply like the 95-96 ones better. But 94-95 is another one worth considering if you're looking for cool, inexpensive 90s insert sets. The most expensive card in the mix nowadays, the Shaquille O'Neal, can pretty easily be found for under $10, and the rest of them could be hunted down for under $5. And since it's only a 6-card set, this is something that you could put together pretty quickly and inexpensively. Could be a good one to do, especially if you really love the big man era of the NBA. Number 4, 95-96 Flir Ultra Power. If you watched the last insert video series I made, you would know that I was a sucker for quite a number of the 9394 and 9495 Flir Ultra inserts. While this video has noticeably less Flir Ultra than did the previous one, it'll still get some love here as well, starting with 9596 Ultra Power. I actually did already feature the 9495 Ultra Power insert in the last video series as well, but these ones I felt deserve their own focus. The 10 players featured in these inserts are some of the most powerful power forwards and centers at the time, and as a set that was inserted at 1/4 packs, it wasn't out of reach for a kid collector on an allowance level budget to put together a full set of these. Nowadays, you could probably find each of them for like $1 a piece if you looked around. They aren't expensive at all. You could also consider going to the gold medallion edition of these cards instead, which are barely noticeably different, but they were inserted at a much more rare rate of 1/40 packs. Despite the rarity of the gold medallion edition, it's still pretty easy to track most of the cards down for under $3 or $4. Maybe you'd have to fork out $5 for the shack. So since the set is so small, I'd personally recommend just going for the gold medallion edition if you were interested in this set. Considering the fact that it was 10 times more rare, its price is really not that significantly different. I don't know what that may say about some of the color parallels nowadays actually. The gold medallion edition cards at the time went for quite a lot more than the normal ones because of how much more rare they were, but they just never had that much of a long-term demand more than the normal ones, so their value nowadays really isn't that significantly different. What's going to happen to modern day color parallels? I don't know, could be similar. Number 5, 9596 Flir Ultra Rising Star. The Rising Star insert series featured 9 of the most promising young players in the NBA at the time, all of whom were among the young players in the league most sought by the card collecting community at the time. They were inserted at a rate of 1/37 packs, so they were quite rare and quite expensive at the time as well. But nowadays, even the most expensive of the bunch, the Shaq card, will still only cost you like $5 or $6. And just like the Ultra Power inserts, these ones also had a gold medallion edition. However, those ones can be quite expensive even nowadays, which isn't strange considering they were only inserted at a rate of 1/370 packs and can be hard to find on the open market now. Number 6, 9596 Skybox Premium Kinetic. That was a pretty quick trip into the Flir Ultra inserts in this video. I'm not sure if it's just that a lot of other brands picked up their insert game in the 95-96 card season or what, but though like a third of what we were looking in the last videos were Flir and Flir Ultra, other brands are represented quite a bit more in this video, such as these 95-96 Skybox Premium Kinetic inserts, which were inserted at a rate of 1/4 packs. The set consisted of 9 of the quickest players in the NBA and had a number of names that weren't seen all that often in inserts at the time, which I really appreciate now as I don't necessarily just want the same few names over and over when I'm looking at cards from the 90s. This set included Rod Strickland, who was one of my favorites, Mookie Blaylock, Lamont Murray, Stacey Augmon, Khalid Reeves, and Kenny Anderson, as well as some bigger names like Gary Payton, Tim Hardaway, and Nick Van Exel. But though there are some star names in this set, a lot of the mega stars of the era were not in this set, which is something I actually really quite appreciate now, especially if I'm looking for a cheaper set to piece together. Since these cards were relatively easy to pull from packs, and since it was only a 9-card set, and since the names aren't of the most expensive players in the hobby, nowadays you could probably piece together this whole set for under $5 in total. I mean, you might be able to get each card for under 50 cents, possibly. Number 7. 9596 Skybox Premium Larger Than Life. As we learned from our last video, whenever there is a somewhat rare insert set that includes Michael Jordan as one of the names in the set, even if all the other cards from that set are pretty cheap, there is a good chance the Jordan one won't be. That's the case with these larger than life inserts. Nowadays, while you could find 9 of the 10 cards in this set for under like $5 a piece, you're likely going to have to fork out at least $50 if you want the Jordan. But even with that higher Jordan price tag, this full set could still cost less than $100 total, so it's not an expensive chase overall, but it's a pretty fun chase. Firstly, it's pretty rare, inserted at a rate of 1/48 packs, which means you won't be able to just hunt it down and find it right away necessarily, which can extend the hunting time, which can be fun. In addition, the 10 names on the checklist are some of the most collectible names from that time period, which can definitely be fun for nostalgic purposes as well. Number 8, 9596 Skybox Premium Meltdown. This was another insert set that I had a tough time deciding if it was inexpensive enough to make this video or not, but ultimately I decided to since, again, other than the Jordan card, most are quite affordable most of the time, and it's just a phenomenal looking set of cards. It may be a bit more expensive than most other cards on this list, but since the checklist is only 10 names long, it's a realistic budget chase overall. The set focuses on 10 of the top scorers in the league, and though the Jordan one will likely run you a bit over $100, maybe even closer to $130, unless you really search long and hard for possibly something in the upper 2 digits, most of the rest of the cards can be found for under $5 or $10. The Shack may occasionally go up closer to 25 or 30, but even that one can be found cheaper with patience and an eye on the hunt. The reason these cards are slightly more expensive than others on the list is several things. For one, it was in the Skybox Premium set, which wasn't necessarily the most expensive cards at the time, but certainly more than Hoops or Flir or Stadium Club. In addition, these cards were inserted at a rate of 1 per 54 packs, meaning they were very rare to find. And the look of the card has kept them relevant in the hobby as well, as they still tend to be more commonly sought when compared to most of the other inserts on this video. They were pretty big cards for people to chase back in the 90s, so the fact that they are now just inexpensive enough to make a list of cheap insert sets to put together is a little crazy to me. But they make for a fun set to hunt down, and the fact that they are slightly rarer also makes the hunt a little more involved, especially if you really want to get some decent prices. You could probably find them pretty easy at way too high prices, but finding them for closer to current comps can actually take some time and some looking, which can make for a fun hunt if you like that sort of thing. Number 9, 95-96 Topps Whiz Kids. At first, I wasn't sure whether to include these inserts in this video, since as a kid, I thought less of these than some of the other cards. I'm not exactly sure why though. It has a unique design, which is something I always liked and still do today. Maybe the wood blocks felt a little too childish for me or something, I'm not sure. But nowadays, I like these inserts pretty well, and I think they make a fun set to chase to put together for an inexpensive price tag. Nowadays, despite the fact that these cards were relatively rare, inserted at a rate of 1 per 24 packs, the most expensive card from the set may only run you $3 or $4, so putting together the 12 card set, which includes many of the top young prospects of the time, would be inexpensive to do. So if you like this design, this is an easy one to recommend. Number 10, 95-96 Hoops Top 10. I have pretty vivid memories of liking these inserts as a kid quite a lot, and I'd say the pictures of these cards don't do them justice. There's a kind of sheen to the card that I always thought looked really cool. They weren't overly rare, inserted at a rate of 1 per 12 packs, and since Hoops was one of the more affordable brands at the time, I ended up pulling several of these things when I was a kid, and I was happy every time I did. The 10 players on the checklist are some of the more collectible names of the era, although to be honest, I was never able to figure out why the set was called Top 10. Like, top 10 what? I mean, they were all great all-star level players, but it wasn't like the top 10 best in the league or something. But whatever, it was still a cool set. Nowadays, you may need to fork out 15 or 20 bucks for the Jordan card, but the rest of the cards in the set can be found pretty easily for $1 or $2, so it's a cheap set to put together overall. It's super cool. With that being said, that's all we have for this video. In the next video, we're going to look at another 10 from this same era, 95-96, 96-97, and 97-98. Originally, these were all going to be in one video. It just was taking too much time, so I split it into two. So come back for the next one. Peace.